Michigan State University and Lansing Community College have formalized a partnership that improves access to a four-year degree, increases student success, and helps build a pipeline of talent to meet the needs of the mid-Michigan economy. The partnership, called Envision Green, also provides a seamless transition from LCC to MSU by embedding MSU advisors within LCC to guide students through their educational journey, a transition more than 5,500 LCC students have made over the last decade. With this partnership in place, prospective LCC students can consider MSU from the start of their higher education journey. The affordability of the LCC to MSU path means a four-year degree is an option for more people in the region, crucial for building and retaining an educated workforce in Michigan.
What we're doing is launching Envision Green, which is formalizing an incredible partnership between Michigan State University and Lansing Community College, creating a great pathway for students who are transferring from LCC to MSU.
That's LCC president and MSU alumnus Steve Robinson. Mark Largent is MSU's associate provost for undergraduate education and dean of undergraduate studies.
It's formalizing something that has existed informally for years. And the problem with informal relationships is that they're not very equitable for students. That is, students who have the resources, either who they know or what they know, or the financial resources to get the connections that are necessary. Those students are better able to navigate informal networks. And so by formalizing it, we're creating a more equitable space for our students, a more transparent space, so that there isn't that kind of what we call hidden curriculum in the relationship between LCC and MSU.
Yeah, if I could just agree with Mark by saying, we've been partnering for a long time, but being intentional about the pathway is really important for the equity reasons that Mark talked about. Folks have been transferring from LCC to MSU for a long time. In fact, my father-in-law transferred from LCC in 1958, one of the first students to transfer from LCC to MSU and earn a packaging degree back then. But Mark's exactly right. We're going to be intentional about this so that more students can benefit and we'll have more equitable outcomes.
It's estimated that community colleges are the entry point for close to half of America's post-secondary students, making this partnership a win-win for students, the institutions, and the local community. The Envision Green Memorandum of Understanding specifies a one-year partnership with an option for renewal and states both parties' intention to continue to grow the relationship. Both institutions want to make it easier to plan an academic path from one institution to the other.
Well, we want to pilot it and we want to learn from it. And we've already learned an awful lot. So the last thing we want to do is build a complicated formal structure that is not well attuned to our students' needs. And while President Robinson and I have a lot of information available to us and a lot of how students make the transition from LCC to MSU, we certainly don't know everything. And so by piloting it for a year and all the way through listening and watching and asking, our hope is that we can continue to improve this year after year to make it a smoother transition from one institution to another. We also want to think about this not just as the moment that a student goes from LCC to MSU, but in a broader continuum. So it is in all of our best interests if more students learn about a pathway into LCC, through LCC, into MSU, and through MSU as early as possible. So really, when students are starting to think about, well, what might they do to continue their education, they understand I can go from where I am to LCC, to MSU, to where I want to be. And in order to do that, we have to build a pretty complex set of not just policies and procedures, but also messaging. And part of what we're trying to learn how to do is to work together in this very open and transparent way with pathways that are very clear and obvious to people.
And Mark, how does Envision Green relate to MSU's focus on student success?
Well, so MSU has put a really intense focus on student success for about the last 6 years now, with a really high degree of success as an institution. We've been able to increase our graduation rate a point a year, every year, for 5 years straight. This year, we raised it up and we didn't make the rounding error. So we can't say we did it 6 years straight, but we're at 81.3%. We went up 0.6% between last year and this year. So we're seeing this constant increase in the persistence and graduation rate of our students. At the same time, the time to degrees are shrinking. The students are moving through the system more quickly. All of that means that they're graduating with a more economical degree, with less debt, or with no obligations to attain debt as they work their way through. So that's all really good news for us. But that's only half the story, right? Persistence and graduation is only half of what we need to be doing. The other thing that we need to be is a very accessible and equitable institution. So when we talk about student success, we're not talking about individuals being successful. That's not what we mean when we say MSU is a student success organization. What we mean is that the university is designed and structured and oriented toward supporting students' needs. There are lots of very successful universities in the United States that are what they are, and they admit the students that can survive their institutions. There's a college president who says, the very highly selective universities look for students that are impervious to learning. They don't need to teach them anything. And that's not what Michigan State is. We don't want to be a highly selective university, because we think that would mean being a highly rejective university. We don't want that. We want to be very, very accessible. Accessibility is an important value to us. But just throwing your doors open, that's not being accessible. You really have to provide the sidewalks into the university. And that includes thinking about the very different places that your students may come from. So if we're going to be a student success organization, we have to develop relationships with our peers in state and out of state, so that students are met where they are and help to get to where they want to be. And so we really have to start thinking much harder about these kinds of issues, because we want to extend the franchise of higher education to a larger number of people, especially in mid-Michigan, but in Michigan generally. And this is really a great partnership for us to do this, because LCC is so good at access. I mean, they have figured that part of the equation out. And so we want to team up and get students through with bachelor's degrees, because we know what a profound difference that is to them as individuals, to their families, and to the broader communities.
There are a lot of very important synergies between the two organizations, and certainly so many of our students desire to transfer not just to four-year programs, but to Michigan State. And so, Mark mentioned sidewalks. There's an old lore in campus planning that you wait to see where the students walk across the grass before you put in the sidewalks. And that's kind of what we've done with Envision Green. We know that our students have a trajectory toward MSU. The only other thing I'd add to what he said about student success, which is so on point, is that the best colleges and universities in the country are focused on what we'd call post-college success. It's one thing to be successful at the institution, but we're all doing this so students can be successful after they leave the community college, after they leave the university. So Envision Green is really pointed at making sure our students get what they need when they come here, and they thrive in their lives, and their families thrive once they're done with their education.
Sarah Day is a junior at MSU studying special education. She came to MSU from LCC.
I am a junior at Michigan State studying special education, and I always wanted to go to MSU. That was like my dream school since I was young. So that was kind of a no-brainer for me. So when it was senior year of high school, I applied. I actually got deferred a semester, probably just because of situations that were going on. So I had an option. I could attend a four-year university right away, because I had some other options of other institutions and not go to my dream school, or I could use an option like LCC, which was an amazing option at the time, and be in a better financial situation and eventually go to MSU. So that was a big decision at the time. Looking back, it was a very easy one. But at the time, it was a big decision. So obviously, I did end up going to LCC for a semester. It was an amazing experience. I really could not say enough good things about it. And I did have some support from MSU just because of my already being admitted just for a different semester. However, I met a lot of students, and I work with a lot of students now who didn't have that support. And I just can see how much this program will benefit them because they didn't know about the internships you needed to have to graduate at MSU. They didn't know about the different qualifications you need to have to get into a major, to get into a college. So I think those things are really important for students. And I think they come here maybe feeling a little bit lost. And I think this program will really help like unite that gap. And I just can't say enough good things about this program from what I've heard, and I'm really excited for this.
Day believes that Envision Green enhances the student experience at both LCC and MSU.
Well, I think current students at MSU should realize how much this will bring to our population and how many people this will bring to how many amazing people this will bring to our like student population, and as well as LCC students, knowing that they want you to succeed at MSU. They don't want you to have a hard time, transferring. And I think that maybe is a misconception, but they want you to succeed elsewhere. They don't just want you to succeed at LCC. They want you to succeed at whatever four-year institution, whether that be MSU or not. So I think that's something that this program will communicate to students is how much they want you to succeed. And that they are on your side with this.
Dr. Largent, what do you want those joining in on our conversation to keep in mind about the MSU LCC Envision Green partnership?
Okay, so I think there are two things from my perspective, and institutional perspective really matters. So I'm anxious to hear what Steve thinks too. The first is that we know in the classroom, if we want students to attain their learning outcomes, the best thing that we can do is tell them what we want them to learn, not hide from them. I'm going to trick you and on a test, drop this on you, and you didn't realize that was the thing that you should have been focused on instead of this. To actually be very transparent about what our learning outcomes are in a class, right? And so if a student looks at the beginning of the semester at the syllabus and they look at the course description, it should say very clearly, in this course, you will learn how to do X, Y, and Z. And that should guide for them precisely what it is that they're studying and working toward. When they do that, they get more learning outcomes, and they should get better grades. And things should all be very, very well aligned. That being the case at an institutional level, we should be telling students very clearly, this is what you need to do if you want to get from where you're at through LCC to MSU, through MSU into a degree. Just really clear. So an important part of the Envision Green landscape is that when a student decides they are going to go to LCC or they're at LCC and they want to get to MSU, we will tell them point blank, these are the courses that you need to take. And these are the grades that you need to earn. And if you do that, we guarantee we will invite you to Michigan State. And knowing what they need to accomplish to get where they want to go is a really critical part of it. The second is, and I think Sarah described this a little bit in her experience, is that it wasn't as though she was at LCC and when she came to MSU, she was sort of in an entirely new land where she knew no one. A really important part of that bridge from LCC to MSU is that we get MSU people into LCC to be the points of contact for students so that they can go with them back to MSU when the students make that transition. And so they have points of contact already established before they go there. I mean, it's like knowing somebody in a city that you're going to go visit for the first time. That person there is going to give them that link that's really critical to their success. I think those two things make this program different than the informal structures that existed before, because neither one of those things were there. I also think the certainty of the promise, if you do X, you'll get Y. And we know that. From MSU's point of view, we want students to be successful and to be well prepared to have more success when they get to MSU. So telling them this is what you need to do to attain that preparation is good for us as well, because we get students who are prepared to be successful when they get here.
Yeah, I agree with Mark, Russ, and I think Sarah's story and perspective is probably the best case study of successful community college university transfer. And all the research is bearing this out. So when you heard Sarah talk about her experience, a recent study found that the number one predictive factor of success in a transfer from a community college to university is being in touch with someone at the destination university while you're at the community college. And that's a design feature of Envision Green. We're going to have MSU people on the LCC campus making that connection. Sarah also talked about other connections outside of the classroom to the university. So those are really important. We're being really intentional about building that bridge from LCC to MSU. The other thing that when you listen to Sarah talk, she had in her mind what she wanted at the beginning. And so in some ways, we've kind of retro-synthesized or reverse engineered an experience that takes into account some of the biggest blockages, because most of the problems that community college transfer students have when they land at a university is that credits don't transfer or requirements change. And teams at LCC and MSU have been analyzing and designing the pathway that Mark is talking about to eliminate those kind of barriers, so that we're upfront with students about what they'll need when they land at the transfer destination. The only other thing I'd say is it's so inspiring to me to listen to Sarah's story, because that's why we're doing this. We're doing this for students like Sarah. And Sarah, I want to tell you, my own career would not be possible without a relationship between LCC and MSU. I was working on a master's degree at Michigan State and fell in love with community colleges when I did an internship here at LCC. So our two institutions working together, it changes people's lives. It changed my father-in-law's life. It's changing yours, and it changed mine. So we're really excited about Envision Green and what it can do for students like Sarah.
Well, and this is part of being student-centric, is that we, as an institution, we learn from the student's experience. And what Sarah is able to navigate and to sort of do as a DIY program, we can look at it and say, this could be put into practice and made visible to students as an option, and then supported by the two institutions, and would create a much more, as we said, equitable and accessible pathway for students to take. So yeah, that pivot from we know best, do what we say students, to us looking at students who are doing things in much more creative and brave ways than we imagine, gives us direction and guidance as we start thinking about how we make this more available to more people.
We would, in several years, like this to become, the model for community college transfer. We'd love it when people ask the question, where's the best transfer pathway from a community college to an R1 university? They'd say, well, you better look in Lansing, because there's this thing between LCC and Michigan State that's really great.
Envision Green is the partnership between Michigan State University and Lansing Community College that provides a seamless transition for students to go from LCC to MSU. The program is designed to improve access to a 4-year degree, increase student success, and help build a pipeline of talent to meet the needs of the mid-Michigan economy. I'm Russ White for MSU Today.